Hey, DR family. Hope all is well with you and your family. I'm just sitting here in our worship center here in the gym for where our contemporary service usually happens. And I was just thinking about this story that I heard about a guy who loved Jesus. This is a story from a while ago. It's a true story. But he loved Jesus. I mean, every day was marked by the grace of Jesus. One day he went upstairs. He had to go grab something from his room. And he came back downstairs and completely forgot who he was. And so he went down the stairs, he went outside, left his family, left his life, totally not doing that on purpose. And he walked until he ended up in another state. And people were like, hey, who are you? What are you doing here? He couldn't remember, so he just cobbled together a couple things that he saw on a sign. And so he said, my last name is Bourne. And he needed to be able to support himself, this Mr. Bourne, and so he got a job at a grocery store. And that's what he did. He packed groceries. And that's really what defined him. Until one day, just as quickly as he'd snapped into forgetting who he was, he snapped out of it and remembered, wait a second, I don't belong here. I'm this guy who loves Jesus, and I love his grace. And so he went back to his old life. But it's just interesting to think that this character who gave himself the last name of Bourne forgot who he was. And in fact, Jason Bourne from the Bourne series by Robert Ludlum was based off of that actual character in that psychological case study. But I just thought it was interesting that he forgot who he was. And I'm wondering now that you've got a little bit more time to think, in this time of Lent that's already supposed to be meant for introspection and being redefined by God's word and the promises of Jesus, I wonder if now is a really good time for us to reconnect to who we really are. I mean, maybe you're watching this video and you haven't thought about faith or Jesus or anything like that in a really long time, but now's a really good time, now that you have time, to think about all those lessons that you learned about him. Because I don't know where you're at in your life today. Maybe you're living in a way that's really distant from Jesus. Maybe you're living in a way that is antagonistic to the faith that you might know that's expressed in Jesus. But now, maybe it's a good time to just start thinking back to who Jesus is and what you've learned about what he's done for you. And for those of you who are still connected to your faith, maybe this is a good opportunity in this significantly slowed pace of life. In some aspects, in other aspects, it's ridiculous. But there's moments, right, that are a little bit slower, where you have time to think and process. Maybe it's a good time to remember who Jesus is for you. Well, that's my thought for today, that this Lent would be redeemed even more so than it normally is, that this would be a sacred time that you could look back on as a time where I actually thought about spirituality, and more specifically, the spirituality that's expressed in Jesus. So that's my prayer for you today. I hope and I pray that this message is finding you well, safe, reading the scriptures at home with your family, being nourished by his words of promise. God bless you and God's peace. Goodbye.